Hey there guys, welcome back to another episode of Gavinski's Tutorials. Today I'm going to do a walkthrough and extensive demo of AlchemDie by Diego Capoccitti, aka 34 Audio Visuals. So this is the developer of SwarmDie, DroneDie and a bunch of other plugins, and this is inspired by the Make Noise Strega. Now it's not an official emulation or anything, but it's heavily based on that. And so you probably know the Strega hardware, synth and effects unit, $600 a pop for that hardware, designed in collaboration with Alessandro Cortini, and loads of people are absolutely mad about that. So this plugin is available for Mac, Windows, iPad and iPhone. It's plugin and standalone, right? So here I'm looking at the iPad version, but it's the same as the desktop version. I've got it loaded inside AUM on my iPad, and I'm just modulating a few knobs and stuff here, right? And big thanks to Diego for sponsoring this video, by the way. Really appreciate it. So this is brilliant and pretty deep. So first I'm just going to tell you a few things I like about it. Then I'm just going to explain the core concept. Then I'm going to let you hear it on a whole bunch of different things, because it can be an effect as well, remember. So I'm going to let you hear that. And then we'll, walk through the UI and stuff and the controls in a lot more detail. So things I really like, the sound can just feel really organic. It's beautiful sound, really kind of alive. And small tweaks in this can make a massive difference. It's a tweaker's paradise, this thing. So some of the controls in here are linked to other controls, and that's not always obvious, what's linked to what. So I think this video will be really useful. There is a very good manual, but it's very kind of detailed. I think this video will be easier way to understand the app than plowing through the manual, but the manual is brilliant. If I forget anything interesting, I'll mention it in the pinned comment. And as this is a plugin, of course, you can also use a whole bunch of different instances together to make complex dronescapes. So, the basic concept in terms of using this as an instrument, like I'm using it in this particular example, is that we have this tonic section, right? So basically this is the oscillator. And then here we have pretty much a delay section with a built-in filter that's part of the feedback loop. And then, we can blend the dry-wet of those there, the oscillator. Or we can also take in external input, and I'll show you that later. And then go into this section here where we have, level and bit of companding and stereo width and so on. There's a really cool section down here called agitation. That's basically a trapezoid, LFO. It can be an envelope as well, that can go really slow or very fast. It can go up to audio rates, and it can modulate the filter, the delay time, the tonic, right, the oscillator frequency, or the activation, which is basically just the level of the oscillator, right? So, that's just the quick overview. So now let me let you hear it as an effect on a few things. So I'm not going to get into tweaking and stuff now. I'll do lots of tweaking later in the video when I'm explaining the controls. So that's our input. That's Buga, right, by Audio Thing and Heinbach. So just a little clicky thing. And there, it's just adding a nice resonance and more atmospheric. That's the tail ringing out. That's beautiful. Okay, here. Oh, that's what we just listened to. So here it's an instrument. Just want to remind you, this can sound awesome. Put it through a whole bunch of different effects as well, right? So don't forget about that. Now here on guitar. So this is just a nice, nice delay with a little bit of grit. So I want to show you that, this doesn't have to be crazy. You can do mellow things, a little bit milder, simple things and stuff with this. Now for the next example, I got to just take my BPM down to 30 inside AUM here. So here we've just got a little sort of plucky synth, carpless strong thing. And AlchemDie is, I really love what I set up for this one. So here I'm also using the oscillator a little bit. So we've got the input audio and the oscillator going into the delay, and we've got a bunch of stuff going on down in the activation section as well. That's that just ringing out. So see, you can hear that oscillator there, right? Here, this is the input. And this is what it's like with AlchemDie. That's the tail there. This has a lo-fi quality to it. The longer the time in the delay, the more the sample rate is reduced. This example here, so here we got noise, just noise going into a spectral resonator. Okay, so this is our noise oscillator in here. Then this is the spectral resonator. And here I'm adding compression. And then that's AlchemDie. I love this example. Now again, I'll come back to some of these probably later in the video towards the end. I've got other presets and stuff for some of these and do a bit of tweaking. And here we've got a little vocal synth and just a little bit of reverb. And now I'm bringing in AlchemDie. It's lovely, right? That's the tail. Nice. Now, I just got one more example here of it as an effect. This is a little bit loud. Let me just bring it down a little bit. So here, an arpeggiated synth line. And that's AlchemDie. I love this. A bit of compression. But it's a bit loud, really. I don't really need the compression here anyway. And I've got the oscillator in here as well, mixed in. Okay, so let's look at the UI. So I've switched over to the init patch. I got this bypassed. Let me just bring it in here. So first, let's look at the tonic section, right? So this part is all about the oscillator. So here we have our main frequency control knob. Okay. But you can also set the frequency with MIDI notes. And now we're back to using the knob. Here we got fine tune. That is really super useful for, either as a performance control or for dialing in frequencies accurately. Although I must say, this knob works well. It's easy to dial things in accurately. Tonic modulation. So this is interesting. So this is the depth of pitch modulation. And that can go up to +1 octave. It's just unidirectional. It doesn't go down an octave, right? It'll take it maximum up 1 octave. And then the speed of that modulation is set here with this speed knob in the agitation section, which wouldn't be obvious, right? So that's why the manual or a video like this is helpful. So with high agitation speed, that sounds like FM. Okay, so I'll bring tonic modulation down. Now then we have tonic interference. This is cool. So this is a random walk pitch drift. And the speed of the drift will depend on what? Can you guess? Well, it's not this. It depends on the time knob here in the delay section, right? So if I put the time to a slower value, like here it's 2 milliseconds, now the drifting is slower. Now it's fast, right? Now, by the way, I'm just going to change this tone control here. So probably as good a time as any to look at the tone control. So here we're morphing between sine, triangle, and saw. And I love the sound of that saw. It's beautiful. Let's just leave it on a triangle maybe for now. Now, we'll look at these pads later. These are cool, by the way. But we'll look at all of those later in one go. So here, activation. So this main knob, this just controls the level of the tonic, the level of the oscillator, right? Again, you know, it opens fast, but it closes slow. So when you turn it down quickly, it takes a while for the sound to die out. Now if I play around with the delay time and stuff, right? And I pull that activation down. Now all we've got is the stuff in the delay feedback loop. We're not actually hearing the oscillator itself anymore, which is pretty cool. Okay, I'm back on init again. So here, activation interference. This is cool. This is really cool, actually. So this modulates the activation level with the feedback signal. Now I'm going to just change the tone. Okay, I put it back up to a triangle. So it modulates the activation level with the feedback signal, right? Now this can do really crazy stuff. This can self-oscillate the whole system, even if I have, even if I have activation down. That's all self-oscillating now, right? And this is heavily influenced by the decay knob. And the time, obviously, right? Because that's the feedback from this section coming back in and modulating that activation. Pretty wild. Let me go back to init, and again, I'm just going to bring the tone back up. I put it a little bit triangle, just nudging into saw. So that's a really crazy control. Now the time section then. So here we just have our course time. So that can, go really short, right down to a millisecond, and all the way up to 2 seconds. So here, look, I just turned the decay up. So, how many times things will be fed back in. So we can get that going basically infinite, depending on some of the other knobs. Now, as I mentioned earlier, at longer delay times, the sound will get more lo-fi because there's more sample rate reduction. here, fine adjustment for the time. Time mod here. So this is time modulation depth. So here there's a sub-oscillator that is half of the tonic frequency, right? That's modulating the delay time, and that's bipolar up or down 50%. So if I put this time mod up to max, let's say, right? And then play with the tonic frequency. You know, if I bring the tonic frequency down, that modulation is going to get slower because remember, it's using the speed of an oscillator that's half the value here. So, you know, if this is set to around 20 Hertz, then it's being modulated at 10 Hertz. And so, you know, the time knob will also be a fun thing to play with here. Okay, so I've brought the time mod down there. So decay is the feedback amount. Okay, no decay there. Really long decay time. Absorb. Can we just put on a little bit of time modulation maybe? So if we have high absorption, right? High absorption, this will actually boost the signal level inside the loop, but it lowers the wet gain at the same time. So let's try something a bit higher frequency. You see that's taken out some of those high frequencies there. Now, here we've got a filter, low pass filter, inside the loop. So here I've taken activation down, so we're just hearing the loop. Now, let me bring the filter down and pull activation down. And so here, you know, the sound will get darker over the course of the feedback cycle. And then we just got a blend knob here for a dry, wet mix. Now, let me jump through a couple of presets here. Okay, let's start with this one. So here I want to look at the agitation section, right? So this is really interesting. So here basically this is a function generator. It uses a trapezoid, okay, a trapezium. Google that if you don't know the shape. You know, base would be longer than the top, and then two angles basically. So a little bit like a square, you know, but the top is shorter than or not as wide as the bottom. So this can go from 0 to 1 and then back to 0. And we have this speed control here, right? That can be very slow or very fast. It can go right up to audio rate. And we can control the angle of that shape and a few other things. And here, these are the things that it will actually affect. So let me show you. So for example, here, see I'm bringing up the speed there. So this is modulating the filter. So that's it very fast, right? And this angle, you'll hear this more clearly. I'll demo the angle on something other than the filter, I think. So here, time, right? Modding the time knob. So basically we change the angle. We can change, whether the attack and decay are equal length, or whether we get a fast attack and a slow decay, or a slow attack and a fast decay, and so on and so on. You'll hear this very clearly when we play with the tonic. Boom, 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 right? Boom, boom, boom. So we can also affect the level of activation. So see, even if I bring activation all the way down, if I put that depth up here, then we'll basically get the level going up and coming down again and again. The angle will affect that a lot. I'm just changing the tonic here. Hear that? Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. All right. Now let me pull the tonic and activation down. And so now we don't have any sound, right? So I need to bring the activation knob itself up again. And we have here this one bleed. That will leak the raw agitation waveform into the audio path directly. It's supposed to simulate circuit crosstalk. So make sure the agitation speed knob is up a little bit, or you might not hear much from that. So see here the activation, filter, time, tonic. See there, I brought down the tonic. Bring the tonic back in. And now bringing the speed up. Now see this loop button here? So if that's on, this will be looping, or it can basically just run once and then go to 0 until you turn it on again. Listen. See there, I stopped it. Now I press loop again, and now it's looping again. Press this and it stopped again, go down to 0. Okay, another preset. So let's look at this as an effect. So let's go back to our guitar example. So see now, this will be slightly different, by the way, depending on your host, but this is the way it is in iOS. In iOS, there are two versions of the app, right? One is the instrument version that's loaded in an instrument slot inside your host like AUM. And then you have the effect version. And you see they look a little bit different. So this is the instrument version. You can see, there's no knob here, right, for strength and stuff. But if we look at the effect version, we have a knob for strength and another knob for external. So the strength, that's basically the input gain, right? So you can use that to boost your signal or just, get it the level that you want. I often find that I like to boost things a little bit. And then here, the external knob, that'll just crossfade the external signal into the loop input. So, you can keep your strength at the level you want and then just use this to fade between the two and so on. Right? Now I'm going to jump over to this example here. This is good for the kind of fast transient stuff. So look at the character section. We have a level here, right? But we also have this companding. So this is useful for stuff that has, strong transients. So if we have the companding knob at high values, that will duck the feedback on the loud transients. So you see here, we're just not really hearing the effect very much because we're not hearing the delay section very much because the feedback is being ducked. If I bring companding all the way down, now there's no ducking going on. That's really great when you're using this as an effect on percussive stuff. Good, good on guitar and everything as well, right? There's just stereo width, has effect. Just put a delay on the right channel. And up here, level. Okay, and that has a soft clip inside to prevent excessive spiking. So these gesture pads, these are pretty cool. So they all do different things, right? So crumble, that'll just reduce the filter cutoff and increase absorb. Surge, that boosts the activation and the wet blend, right? Freeze, this boosts the absorb amount. Right, so these are just little, momentary macros, right? When you hold it, it's active, and you release, and it will revert. Void, that reduces a lot of different things. It reduces the filter cutoff, the absorb amount, activation level, and blend. Right? Basically, like here, it just sounds like the dry input, basically. Flutter. That's a tape flutter on the delay time. Burn. This boosts the filter and absorb. That's super nice, isn't it, on this? And these pads are stackable, right? So for example, if I do, say, crumble, and then burn, right? You know, I'm cancelling the filter offset because one of these, you know, opens the filter, one closes it. So I'm cancelling the filter, but I'm stacking absorption because these both increase absorption. There's flutter, and there adding burn. Pretty cool. And we can just, you know, turn the whole thing on or off here. And then this trig button here. If trig is on, then, you know, if we're using the instrument, we can play the tonic with incoming MIDI notes. And the velocity, by the way, will affect the activation level. But if trig is on, whoops. If trig is on, right, it'll take MIDI notes to play the oscillator. If trig's off, then a few of the different notes will trigger these gesture pads. Let me just bring this down. Let's see. I got that the wrong way. Hang on. There we go. Okay. So, you know, this triggers crumble. That triggers surge, freeze, void, flutter, burn, and that's all of them, I think, yeah. Also, by the way, mod wheel can adjust the agitation speed, and this can receive pitch bend messages as well. So here are a couple of different examples of this. Now, you know, I'm just using AUM's preset system, but this has its own good preset system. I just often save things in here because I'm used to it. So that's fully wet, that one. Play with the agitation speed here. I made some notes for myself. Right? Things that would be useful to tweak. See here again, activation section, doing a lot of different stuff. You know, adjusting the filter, or modulating the filter and the time. Now, see there, changing the angle? I mean, it really makes a difference. This is super fun to play with. So, I think I've covered everything there. Hope it was useful for you. I don't know about you, but I love this kind of app. I really love it. It's brilliant for drones. I haven't even experimented yet with using a few of these, but it's the sort of thing I love doing. Put a few of these on a few different channels, play with the levels and so on. Really cool to, you know, record a little bit of automation like I did here into this MIDI tape recorder app, and then, you know, use that to modulate it. And really interesting to play with it as an effect on loads of different inputs. And you know, great bargain, especially, I mean, it's bargain, you know, the desktop plugin is super cheap, and the iOS version, really, really reasonable pricing. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Hope it was useful. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.